Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
Me, I'm Rob, with a big old show coming your way.
Oh, yes. We got a lot to go over here. So we're continuing our series of breaking down the New York Giants roster here. We're going to go over all the corners today. We also have a very special happy birthday message for a member of the Giants here. Also, we got a former Giant starter that retired very abruptly this weekend. And a little bit of more news, just when you think we're done hearing all the rumors and news of draft night. Nope, there's more coming here, guys. There's more coming. And just a little bit of business we got to take care of before contract news. That's what she said? Oh, my. All right, guys. So let's start off. Let's start off on a good note. Let's start it off on a little happy birthday action here. So we got to say, a very special happy birthday to the QB1 here. Daniel Jones, there he is. He looks a little surprised that we remembered it's his birthday, but it's his birthday here today. So
surprise!
Happy 27th birthday to Daniel Jones. I'm going to propose we give Daniel Jones a gift this year for his birthday. Okay.
Oh, geez.
And the gift is realistic expectations and not to be a jerk to a guy who busts his butt for this team. I think that's a fair present.
It's a very, very
like he's not going to be the top tier quarterback. We just have to live with that and understand that he's our best option we have right now. And we have to understand at the same point that the guy does bust his ass for this team.
Yeah, 100%. He's like, you know what? He kind of reminds me of the old. I don't know. It's not right. Remember Chad Pennington?
Yes.
He was a leader that helped the Jets, but he wasn't a good player.
No. See, I'm gonna I like Chad Pennington. I was very high in Chad Pennington. Remember, he even won the division with the Dolphins. Chad Pennington was an underrated quarterback in my eyes. He never had the arm strength. Daniel Jones's fault is that is that he can't read defenses. There's a little difference. But I think again, we just have to accept what he is and move on from that.
The heart is there, but is the arm there? That is the situation. Like, the heart is there, but is the performance there? That's where these guys line up.
You know damn well if he could do something and change it all of a sudden be a better quarterback, he'd do it in a heartbeat. That's the thing.
100%. 100%.
That's the thing. Sometimes you can just say this guy is not the right fit, but he's not a bad person. It's almost like a bad relationship at that point. So just expect the breakup next year. But in the meantime, happy birthday, Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Hey.
You get one more big payday this year. All right. Let's get into our topic at hand today, which of course is the corners. And obviously, we got to start with one man who had a good rookie year last year and comes out now as a CB1 for the first time in his career. And that is Mr. Deonte Banks here. And interesting year it's going to be for him because obviously Adoree Jackson was out for a little bit during the year. At one point, Adoree Jackson was just in the slot as well. So he's had some time in, the CB1 role to a certain degree. But he always had the veteran there, Adoree Jackson, to bail him out if need be. He don't got that this year. So let's go to the tail of the tape here. So 24 years old, 6 foot even, 205 pounds. Obviously was the 25th overall draft pick in 23 out of Maryland by us. Rob and I are not afraid to admit we were not too happy about the pick. We liked his rookie year, but we thought he was just drafted a little high for what we thought he was.
Premature.
What?
A little premature.
we liked the athletic skills. We just were worried about the rest of it, like the technique portion of it there. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Last season, 15 games, 15 starts, 64 tackles, 2 interceptions, 11 passes deflected. That's actually a pretty high number there. 2 tackles for loss, and a 51.4 PFF grade. And I'm really, really curious because the big thing, and I almost wonder if it's too early to ask to a certain degree, but the big thing we're going to find out is, can he be a true number 1 corner this year? Remember, he struggled last year against some big-time receivers. But again,
and that was a lot of that was also early in the year. Like he really came to, like, especially like let's talk about like later in the year. Like he started coming to more and opening. Oh, hey now. It started opening up a little bit more. Oh, hey now.
Hello.
Brazen.
I mean, the big thing for me as far as him later in the year was there was the whole talk about Dable getting involved in Wink's defense more and basically trying to force his hand to go into zone more often. And to me, Banks looked a lot more comfortable in a zone style defense. He seemed to fit it better. His interceptions came in zone coverage as well. And that's part of why I'm a little curious what's going to happen now with Shane Bowen as the defensive coordinator this season. Obviously, they still retain Jerome Henderson, who's the DB coach, and a guy that you and I both obviously have a ton of respect for. So I'm very curious to see, with those changes to the defense and his abilities he showed and flashed last year, can he be that number 1?
I think there's a reason why we took him number 1. At the end of the day, like as much as I was
made Wink happy.
It definitely
made Wink happy.
Winked about it. Yeah. As much as we were upset about it. Like, there's a reason. There's a talent level there. Like, he has the he has a talent to be a number 1. And like you said, zone defense is where he really shined. Which, if we looked at his college tapes, and you guys want to revisit, look at his college tapes. He was great in the zone. He was a great athletic person. Out of zone. Oh, zone.
If AutoZone wants to sponsor us, the email is 2giantgoofballs@mail.com. Ow!
But I'm saying, like you play to the guy's strength.
Yes.
And he shined. Okay, like that's not shocking. Like, let's see how this offense looks.
He was like Tamatoa in Moana. Yeah. If anyone gets that references, kudos to you.
Kudos to you.
So shiny. But yeah, I mean, I guess my concern I have with him overall is, do I think he deserves a shot to be a number 1? Yes, 100%. Because you drafted him this high. He didn't have a bad rookie year. Typically, the second, third year, these guys start to shine at that point there. But the one concern I have with them is if he fails, there's no backup plan. There's no Adoree Jackson waiting in the wings, which, don't get me wrong, I don't want Adoree Jackson back. We'll talk about free agencies as we always do later on. But it's like, there's no one there to be go, okay, this didn't work out here. We're putting too much on him too early. Let's put so-and-so in there.
Correct. But also, we had a full year with Banks already.
Yes.
With Adoree, and we've seen what these guys can do in the locker room, who they are as an individual, who they are on the field, and how much they commit to who they are playing on the field. So, Banks, that's something you have to say. Like, he's given it his all. And if you look, like, there's no sandbagging. Like, he plays to his fullest.
Yeah.
If it's in zone or is it in coverage, like, that's, I mean, it's different because, like, he's better at one than the other, but he's still giving it his all.
And he's still, I don't want to say he's better at it necessarily with man, because it was kind of like they do zone a little more in Maryland, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go back to our tape on him we had when we first drafted him as well. But if I remember correctly, that was the feeling. So it's kind of like he's still
zone
not as
and
familiar.
blitz.
Yeah, so he's not as familiar with man. He's probably get better at that over time, but he's more comfortable in zone. And if you're going to throw him into a spot where he's number 1, like he's going to be, then you should use zone more often because he's more comfortable in it. Don't try to get him to teach too much at once. But what I'm getting at is, like week 1, you got Justin Jefferson, potentially the best or second best receiver in the league, depending where you put him and Tyreek Hill. That's a pretty tough test right off the bat there, even if he is coming off injury. You got twice against CeeDee Lamb. You got twice against A.J. Brown. You got Scary Terry twice at that point. I mean, he's going to have a gauntlet of really good receivers to go against, I'm just a little scared that there's no backup plan just in case. And I'm really hoping to give him some safety help, because the worst thing you can do is destroy a young corner's confidence. It's like any player. Once they lose that confidence and that swagger, and corners have that swagger, there's a reason half of them got a lot of bling on at that point when they get drafted at that point. It's just they have that almost like a receiver kind of mentality as far as that. Because a lot of times they are one-on-one. They're left on an island of their own. It gets them a little bit of that me attitude. Not necessarily saying they're bad people and they're bad, teammates, but there's a lot of individual. Like, you can watch tape and go, okay, look what this corner is doing. Whereas you watch tape, you can look at, like, let's say the left guard. You can go, okay, well, it looks like he's doing his job. I don't know what the lineup is. I don't know what he's supposed to block who. Like, when you watch a corner what they're supposed to do.
Correct. And a lot of good corners, a lot of great corners are subpar receivers that just couldn't catch the ball.
Or they're not quite tall enough.
Yeah.
That's also part of it too, because I mean, like you said, we said 6 foot for him, which would be short typically for a receiver. Obviously, nowadays that seems to be overly tall. Now they're drafting 5'5" receivers. It feels like lately. Which you got to wonder, is that going to help make more interception in this league overall? When you got these shorter receivers and the jump ball is kind of taken out to a certain degree. We'll find out, but I guess the last question with him though is going to be, what's the ceiling? I mean, I would think if he can be a top 20 cornerback in this league, I think that's a win for us at this point, just because of the fact that he is a sophomore in the league here. It's his second season. You can't imagine that he's going to be the best he's ever going to be this season. It'll probably be 1 or 2 more seasons down the road. That's just life. At that point, it takes a couple of years, and corners especially. You see how many struggle to get drafted in the first round. So I don't want to put the high expectations on him. That's a little crazy. But I think top 20 is a legitimate request and hope.
But yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. You hope that
top six. You think top 6, then you're looking for top 20 receiver. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a top 20 corner, and you get a good pass rush at that point. It's going to help the passing game, obviously. I think that's a legitimate hope for him. So
yeah.
Let's go to another guy, and this is a guy that we got to have a lot of hopes for, because the team has got a lot of hopes on him. The coaching staff has already given a lot of hopes for him here, and that's Cor'Dale Flott, who, at least as of now, is kind of penciled in very thinly, just in case you have to erase it, you want to leave a mark, penciled in at CB2. And I'm a bit confused by that, to be very frank with you guys. I don't quite get that. I think there's better options out there. To me, it almost seems like, and I hate to make such an accusation, so I'm not going to say it flat out is the case, but I'm going to put the thought out there. It seems almost like Shane and Dable are trying to validate their draft pick. They drafted him in the 3rd round. That was obviously, back in 22 out of LSU. It was kind of a reach pick, a lot of people thought, including myself. I remember, I'll never forget when they drafted him, and Talking Giants was doing their draft coverage. This is before you and I were doing the show, obviously. It's the last draft before that. And Bobby Skinner of Talking Giants, friend of the show there, flipping out. Because he's like, God damn it, I do all this work and I didn't even look at this guy because he's like a 5th round grade on this guy. I never thought they drafted him this high. And he walks out of the room because he's so frustrated. I will always remember Cor'Dale Flott with that. And rightfully so. I had a 5th or 6th round grade on him myself when I looked at him.
Yeah. That's a very safe.
Yeah, that was
my only rebuttal is, like, you're right. They're trying to protect where they drafted him, but it's also the same time like it's a young room that we got.
It is a very young room. It's a very young
room. Flott almost is like a veteran over there. Like, I don't want to say like he's a veteran, but he's like, I mean, we're gonna go over more of the room, but like,
you want to hear something?
He was drafted and like,
what is it really scary? You say
he's
that
the most veteran.
You say that he's actually younger than Deonte Banks. He's 22 years old. He's gonna be 23 in August. He's a year younger than Deonte Banks, even though he's got the one extra year on him. So on the fill the tape real quick here, 6'1", 175 pounds. That man needs a buffet. 14 games, 7 starts, 36 tackles, 1 interception, 5 passes deflected, a forced fumble, and a 53.3 PFF score. You know, I feel like they've tried to shove him into that slot role the last couple of years, and Darnay Holmes keeps just taking it from him. And that's not because Darnay Holmes is a superstar. Let's be honest. Every year we complain about Darnay Holmes. We try to figure out why the hell he's still on the roster. So it's not that Darnay Holmes is this amazing player that he can't seem to win the battle. Yeah. You know, we're going to talk about another guy in a little bit here, Nick McLeod. And I think Nick McLeod is the better option at CB2. I really do. But this is who they're going to give the shot to. Listen, I'm rooting for the kid. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to come off too negative. I'm rooting for the kid. He's a Giant. I want the best for every Giant, so we'll have to see what happens there, but that's what they got. And
well, I mean, we're also looking into like, we're not in preseason already. Like, we're not going to not the regular season. Like, this is like what we're looking at preseason. Like, there's a lot of time for things to change when we're at OTAs right now, which doesn't mean a lot. Like, there's a lot to change before the season actually starts.
Yeah.
Like, hey, remember last year when we were all high on Hawkins?
And you got to wonder, on top of that, the Giants have talked about a few different corners. Remember, we've talked about in the show, a couple different corners during the offseason that just end up signing elsewhere. It makes you wonder, when we say penciled in at the CB2, are they kind of waiting for somebody else to maybe hit this market, hit the streets, or somebody to lower their asking price? Like, I don't think Flott is really who they want at CB2. I think it's just who they want out of who they have, if that makes sense.
100%. And like, it's not even settled on Flott. It's just at this point, at this situation, with what they've gone through practice and different trainings, that which is completely pretty much voluntary right now. They look at this guy and went, he looks like the second best. But hey, 2 months from now, that could all change.
Yep. 2 months from now, he could look horrible in preseason or camp, and they could say whatever. Or he could look really good, like, oh, we validated this decision. We made the right move. Hopefully it's the latter.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's the latter. So let's get to another decision we made this year. And that's our youngest in this very, very young secondary, because let's be honest, we're probably the youngest secondary in the entire NFL, it feels like. This year's third-round draft pick, Andrew Phillips, whatever you want to call him. He's got, both names he goes by at that point there. 22 years old, 6 foot even, drafted this year, like I said, in the third round out of Kentucky, known for their bluegrass and their fried chicken and their colonels, which I'm still trying to understand the whole Kentucky colonel thing. Like, they're not in the military, but somehow they get the name of colonel. That doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. Watch, everybody's gonna Google like what a Kentucky colonel is after this. I forget. I used to know this knowledge. By the way, really quick side note: do you know who used to own the most KFC restaurants besides Colonel Sanders back in the day?
Eric Cartman.
Dave Thomas. Before he started Wendy's, he was the right-hand man of Colonel Sanders. Ooh, weird knowledge I have in my head.
Spicy.
Anyway,
23 spices.
Last year at Kentucky, 12 games, 47 tackles, 5 passes deflected, 1.5 tackles for loss, and a 71.7 PFF grade. This was a guy you and I had some mixed feelings on, so to speak there. Kind of like Banks, but like the Wish version of him. In other words, like he's got the physical tools. He's got some function issues. He's got some, form issues. He's got, Jerome Henderson's got his work cut out for him. Let's just put it that way. In this room as a whole, not just with Banks. Not with Phillips, I mean. But yeah, he's got the physical tools and you see it. The tape was not very good. From everything you're hearing, though, this is going to be the guy that they've kind of penciled into that slot corner spot at that point, and that's where they're thinking he's going to be. And if you listen to his talks he has with the media, that's basically what he's saying as well, is that he thinks he can play that role. So, obviously he's being coached by the team to say that. They want to build the hype up for everybody like they can. So it's going to be a little scary potentially, because you and I talked about the tape it's not the best tape I've seen in the world for a corner. So I'm a little scared they're trying to throw him out there right off the bat there. I kind of would like him to develop a little bit, get some time, give Jerome Henderson a chance to, really work with him before you kill his confidence. Like we talked about with Banks there, confidence is key for these guys. So I think you're going to see a little bit of a rocky start to him this year, to be honest. And my hope is just that he progresses and gets better, as all rookies should, but progresses and gets better as the year goes. And by the time the season's over, like, okay, you know what? He really did come into form. They fixed a couple of things he was doing earlier in the year, and I feel comfortable with this guy as our long-term slot corner. That's the hope.
That's hope, but do you get that?
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I feel like you and I share the same philosophy to a degree as far as how we look at players in the draft and go, we want some substance, we want some good tape. Whereas the Giants, corner-wise, seem to go specifically after physical tools and go, we can just coach the other issues out of them.
So that's a newer thing that they've been doing.
Mm-hmm. This regime.
Yeah, and it's all right. Deonte Banks, he looked good last year. Like, I don't want to say like he was amazing last year, but he also didn't embarrass himself last year. He definitely held with some good receivers. Did he hold back the best? Yeah, I won't tell with that. But they took a guy out of Banks and made him look pretty darn good in the NFL. And it's like, all right, so let's downgrade and shop at Walmart for the same characteristics that what we like.
Rolling back prices. Rolling.
Can we make the lightning strike twice? Yeah. Keep rolling. Like,
along. Remember those old commercials Walmart used to do? They were funny back in the day. Yeah. Using the Rawhide song. Anyway, we get so distracted this.
But I heard you saying they have a type. Obviously, they have a type of what we want to draft. It is athletic corners. But that's
100% it. That's just it.
But that's it. Like,
we can fix the rest.
Do you have an athletic corner that's good in the zone? Do you have an athletic corner that's good in man coverage? Like, or can this guy, do a 4-2?
Yeah, it's just. I mean, so you're going to win sometimes, you're going to lose sometimes with that mentality. That's what it boils down to. Unless there's a specific flaw that you see that you can fix, and you're confident you can fix it. But a lot of the fixing, it's a half and half. It's half the coaching, it's half the player. You can give the best coaching ever, but if the guy's not coachable, the guy's not willing to change, the guy's not willing to put the work in. So we can add that probably to the mix that they believe not only is he athletic, but he's going to put the work in. Because I have to imagine that's part of their evaluation as well, even though we refer to that specifically.
Like, when it comes to Banks, I believe they think they can coach that guy.
Do you believe?
I believe.
Hallelujah.
But I mean, there's certain plays out there. Like, there's a reason why they go that far back in the draft.
Oh yeah,
because there's the potential. Like, hey, you had an opportunity to start at a good school. He didn't succeed. Why?
Yep.
Was it the coaching?
Yeah.
Or is you not listening to the coaching staff?
And again, I get that PFF isn't everything, but a 71.7 PFF grade in college, that's usually not a third-round pick. Again, I'm not saying PFF is everything. I get there's some people who be flipping out when I say it like that. But again, if you look at the tape, we watched the tape, backs it up. He gave up some big plays. He made some mistakes. He also made some amazing plays. There's pros and cons with them. So, I think we just got to prepare for there's going to be some headaches in the beginning. And we're have to kind of prepare for those. So,
100%.
Let's get into the guy who I think is probably going to be our number one backup corner as of right now. Probably a secondary player in general. We've worked him out before at safety as well, so I wouldn't be shocked if he pops there even occasionally. And that's Nick McLeod. Not to be confused with Connor McLeod, Highlander, because I knew you were going to do it. Here we are. By the way, I realized I was talking about that movie at work the other day, and I realized that apparently younger people don't know Highlander the movie.
Oh, that's
apparently
terrible.
we're just old people now, and people.
I mean, it was 84.
I want to say that you were probably dead on in the year. I want to say
it was 84.
I want to say so. I mean, Queen was the soundtrack to it. That just tells you how old the movie was. I mean,
but I mean, listen, people like 22 know who Queen is. Freddie Mercury.
If you're younger and you haven't seen that movie, watch it. Do not watch the sequel; it will ruin the original for you. The sequel was
100%. Only
the
original.
One. And then you can watch anything past the sequel as well. Just know that it's not nearly as good as the original.
And just remember that for whatever reason, there's a Scottish man playing a Spaniard, and there's a Frenchman playing the Scot.
No. He was Sean Connery, the Scottish man, was playing an Egyptian living in Spain.
But he
was still having a Spanish accent.
But he was known as a Spaniard.
Okay. Yes, that's what I'm saying. But he was Egyptian, I thought. We'll have to rewatch the movie. Anyway,
let's
get on to Nick McLeod. We came here to talk about Nick McLeod in this section here, not talk about Connor McLeod. You got me onto it. Don't get me ranting. Anyway, Nick McLeod, 25 years old, 26 in July, probably immortal. There can be only one. 6'1", 190 pounds. Originally an undrafted free agent at a Notre Dame, signed by Buffalo back in 21. And I got to say, as far as undrafted free agents go, he's definitely a success story. Last season, 17 games, 3 starts, 28 tackles, 1 interception, 2 passes deflected, 3 forced fumbles, 3 fumbled recovery, and a 74.8 PFF grade. He actually had a higher PFF grade than Deonte Banks last year. Obviously, there's a difference in sample size. There's a difference in what he went against talent-wise, so I'm not trying to say he had a better year or he's a better play than Banks. I'm just trying to put it in perspective, like, he didn't have a bad year, guys. I still think that in the end, he's the guy who should be CB2. I get why you want your third round pick to be the guy to be CB2. I'm pretty high, and probably higher than most people are, on Nick McLeod. I just think it's time for the quickening, and it's time for his time to take over as CB2. Yes, there'll be a lot of Highlander movie references. For anybody who doesn't know the movie, by the way, you should watch it just to get this segment, not just to watch the movie because it's great.
Guys, I gotta go to the Highlander.
You've watched it.
A whole bunch of times. I'm gonna rewatch it right now.
You're old too. I know you've seen it.
Oh, that hurt my back so much. Just trying to get up.
The other question you got to ask is, again, he's going to be 26 years old here soon. He's been in the league, again, since 21. So you got 21, 22, 23, 24. This is going to be his 4th year in the league. Backups don't tend to last forever in this league. We've talked about it before ad nauseum, where the average NFL player, their career is 3 years. That's their career. He's already gone past that. But at what point does he not have a chance to prove himself to be a potential starter anymore? I feel like this really could be the last chance he has to prove he could be a starter in this league. And I really do actually think he has what it takes. Again, I'm probably much higher on Nick McLeod than most people are. And I don't think he'd be a stellar starter. I don't think he'd ever be a Pro Bowler. I'm not going crazy. He's the guy you can put out there and won't embarrass himself, but he won't excite you either.
Correct. You already hit the nail on the head. Like, the average starter in the NFL, 3 years, right? Terrible. Corners don't last long in this league.
No.
Like, it's wear and tear. Like, these guys got to move fast, be fast, think fast.
Think fast, be fast, think fast, be fast.
Chad Powers, all the way. But, like, you're not wrong with McLeod. I'm a fan of McLeod, besides just saying his name constantly.
Yes, I know. I know. I can't help it.
I can't help it. But he's proven himself not to embarrass himself, right? So, like, is he your CB2? Constantly through the rest of his career? Like, he could be your CB3. Like, he's a guy that's
not a bad spot.
He's a guy that could have a long career in the NFL as not, like you said, a Pro Bowler, but a guy that does his job as a lunch pail job guy. Like, just comes to work, does what he's got to do.
High-end backup. That's what I look at him as.
Correct. So
he can have wrong with that. There's plenty of people that we strive and kill for that kind of career.
Yeah, he would have a long, fruitful career as,
exactly
that borderline position.
Exactly. Now let's get into somebody who may not have a long career. You probably have all forgotten about him. And yes, he does exist. The mythological being known as Aaron Robinson. Oh yes, Aaron Robinson. And I got to tell you, when I was doing the graphics for this, trying to find a picture of him in a game that I could use in that graphic was very difficult because there's not a lot of them out there because he doesn't play. Doesn't play.
It's because he's always hurt.
So 25 years old, 6'1", 193 pounds, third pick in 21 out of UCF. Did not play at all in 23. In 22, he had 2 games, 2 starts, 6 tackles, 1 pass deflected. Now, he's another guy, and I think it's less likely. He's another guy that could potentially be a dark horse candidate to somehow take over that CB2 spot because they tried in 22 to make him the starter. And let's be honest, force-fed him the starting job because he looked like pure cow manure in the preseason.
Well, yeah, I was about to say preseason. You're right.
I remember like us ranting about him nonstop in the 22 preseason when we first started the show because he just looked so bad. Like backups were beating the crap out of him. Like it was that bad. And then all of a sudden the regular season started. Like I said, he was only in 2 games, but he didn't look bad in those 2 games. He actually held his own. It wasn't stellar, but he didn't embarrass himself. And I think part of it was we had such low expectations because of how bad he looked in the preseason that him just going like this, we're like, woohoo. But it's like, this is a guy, again, that they wanted to put the reins on in 22. He didn't get a chance to hold those reins. But guess what, guys? 22 is the same coaching staff. That's the first Dable year. So it's not like this was Joe Judge trying to force this on him or anything like that. No, this was Dable. This was Dable and his people going, you know what? Aaron Robinson deserves a shot to start outside. So if he's healthy and he's not affected by the injuries too much, he's a dark horse candidate to go ahead and potentially be the guy that takes over if Cor'Dale Flott either can't hold the job down during the season or doesn't look good, later on,
I also wouldn't be surprised if you see, Cor'Dale Flott, you see Robson, and you see McLeod kind of switch in or out immediately of who's number 2 and probably who we're going to talk about next a little bit. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you see the flex between these players. Not the McLeod stuff.
McLeod.
The Russo.
We're still doing it. We're not even talking about Nick McLeod.
I know.
People that watch just the Aaron Robinson part of the video on YouTube are like, wait, McLeod, what's going on? Watch the Nick McLeod part. We went a little Highlander crazy. It's okay. But
whoopsie.
Like I said, to me, Aaron Robinson is this guy that nothing that happens with him this season could shock me. he could take over the CB2 spot, it wouldn't shock me. I would say it'd be a little surprising, but not shocking, you know?
Yeah, a little flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like, he could never play in an NFL game again, and I wouldn't be shocked. Like, there's like such a wide range of possibilities for him this season. I'm kind of curious to see where the story goes.
That's very fair.
Yeah. Like I said, I try to keep it real. Keep it real. So, you know, it's like you need a detective to figure out what's going to happen with them. Like a certain detective, like the great Sherlock Holmes, cousin of our next person here, Darnay Holmes.
Great segue.
Yeah, seriously. Elementary, my dear Watson. For the record, Sherlock Holmes is not a real person and not Darnay Holmes' cousin. Anyway, just have to add this later before somebody puts in the comment section, these idiots think Sherlock's a real person. We know that.
He's British from the 1880s or whatever.
Here is one of the oldest corners we have on the roster at just 25 years old. There's 26 in June. I'm not even kidding. The scary thing is, he is tied for the second oldest on this roster at the corner position at 25 years old. That's insanity, like absolutely insanity. 5'10", 195 pounds, 4th round pick back in 2020 out of UCLA. Like, the scary thing is he's one of the most tenured Giants on this roster. Now that Shep is gone, like, he might be one of the oldest tenured Giants on the roster. That's a little scary.
It's not saying much.
Going to his 5th season. And it's been a long time since Deion Sanders, remember talking about him on draft night saying, oh, the Giants just got the best slot corner in the draft. How'd that work for you, Deion? Because it's not working for us. You may not want to use those type of, eye tests at that point when you're looking at players for Colorado. Just saying. Because, yeah. Hasn't worked out very great. Last year, 16 games, 0 starts, 18 tackles, 2 interceptions, 3 passes deflected, 1 forced fumble, 1 tackle for loss, and a 63.9 PFF grade. And I think last year he was where he should be. And let's be honest, we didn't think we'd re-sign him last year. We didn't think we'd re-sign him this year. Like, I should say, we know he took a pay cut last year is what it was. That's right. He took a pay cut last year. We thought he'd be cut flat out. He took a pay cut to stay on. We didn't think there was a chance in hell they'd re-sign him this year, and they have. But if they keep him down the depth chart as a depth piece that has some experience, I'm okay with that. I don't want to see him being a guy that we're utilizing on a regular basis, barring any injuries, of course. That's why you get depth pieces. Because we've already seen what happens. You know, he gets beat. He gets caught with holding calls at bad times, you know. But he's also not the worst corner to have on the roster. So it's kind of like this. It's you take the good with the bad because you recognize he's not a starter. He's not a guy that you should count on for amazing play.
Yeah,
he provides good depth. He's where he should be. So let's get into the guy, the star of last year's training camp, the guy that everyone thought was going to be a Pro Bowler in his rookie year for some reason, based on how they talked about him. Yeah. Trey Hawkins III, Esquire. And no, the Esquire is not really part of his name, obviously. We're just adding that for fun. 23 years old, turns 24 in August, 6'3", really tall for a corner, 195 pounds, 6th round pick last season out of Old Dominion. Last year, 17 games. 3 starts, 35 tackles, 1 pass deflected, and a 52.6 PFF grade. And I think the big key question is basically, why did he look so good at the preseason last year? And I don't just mean the preseason games. I mean training camp, everything. Like, it was national news how good he looked. Like, guys like Peter King were going to the Giants camp saying how good he looked. And they just disappeared and fell apart as the season started.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got a 6th round pick out of Old Dominion.
Yeah, but it's weird.
And I'm not trying to
know football though. You got guys who know football watching him saying this guy's amazing. How did he drop to the 6th round?
They were saying how amazing he was for the pick that we got him. at.
No, they were saying point blank he's going to be a starter, and he looked really good. Point blank.
There was a lot of that.
And that was the plan the Giants had. They're moving Adoree into the slot. He's going to be the outside with Banks. We're going to start 2 rookie corners.
We just start. We did talk about that, so like we can't like deny any of that. But
it did start that way.
I mean, it did start that way. That's what you said.
Yeah.
But
it's crazy
when you go against third string, receivers in the preseason and second, third string quarterbacks in the preseason. Of course, you're going to look great when you're the starter that's going to be taking over that CB2 spot.
Do you think part of this might be also, and I hate to be mean to him on his birthday, but do you think part of this might also be because he was facing Daniel Jones in practice?
Ooh.
Like, I hate to be a jerk about it, but it's not like he was playing great QB people in practice there. Just saying.
Ray Hawkins got a nice interception for Danny Jones for his birthday.
I mean, like I said, considering how bad he looked last year, you kind of have to wonder a little bit if that's what they're saying.
I mean, they said that during the preseason as well. So, like, that's not just saying Danny Jones. There's
I'm not saying it's just him, but the practice is when everybody got all hyped up on him way before, everybody thought he was amazing looking, but he's going against Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor and Daniel Jones. It wasn't like we had a good quarterback in that bunch, really. Again, not to be rude, just trying to be blunt and honest. That Jersey bluntness.
Hey, Gabadagoo. Our best receiver was a number 3 spot.
All right. So, all right. Let's get into our next guy here. We have another third. Another guy with a fancy name. Stanley Thomas Oliver III. Not Esquire. He hasn't played a game for us yet. 25 years old. Turns 26 in June. 6'2", 190 pounds. 7th round pick of the Panthers back in 2020 out of Florida International, which I hate to break it to people. I've been all throughout Florida. All throughout. And let me tell you, there is no international part of Florida, except, to the best of my knowledge, the only part that is, there's a little tiny little park in Tampa in the Ybor section that is actually owned by the government of Cuba, and it's actually considered Cuban land. So you can actually visit Cuba in the middle of Tampa.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's weird, right? It is really weird. It's a really, really tiny park. Anyway, did not appear in a game in 23. The season before that, in 22 with the Panthers, he appeared in 3 games with no starts, had 3 tackles. So, yeah. The song's going to come out now. When you want a player who's not a big deal, what are you going to get? Camp body.
Ooh, camp body.
Because that's what this guy seems like. He's a camp body. And you can't blame a guy who's now been in the league for a few years. He's been 5 years in the league now. He's trying to extend his career. He's trying to keep going. I feel bad for these guys to a certain degree because, you play because you love the game, but you're also playing to make as much money as you possibly can before retirement comes. So you can hopefully live out the rest of your life without having to worry about money. But to me, the writing's on the wall. He didn't play in a game last year. And that was on the Bears, by the way, I should say. That's where he was on the Bears practice squad. Didn't make it. When you can't make it onto the Bears active roster, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So I think, to me, I look at him and go, they brought him in here in case there's an injury. And that's about it. That's where I look at him as, they brought him in for just that kind of scenario. And I just don't see anything coming out of it beyond that.
Yeah, pretty much.
I hate to be mean about it, but I try to be honest.
He's a practice body that, like you said, if
camp body.
Yeah.
I don't know why I have to do like the arm thing with it, but I do. It's fun.
But
camp body.
Darnay Holmes can't stay healthy. Guess what?
Camp
body
comes on their active roster.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happens. And That could be worse. Don't get me wrong. I just, he's been a few years. He's at least got a little experience. I just, like I said, to me, that's just what this guy is. He's a camp body, and I think considering that, we really don't have to spend too much time on him. Not to be mean about it.
We got a few of those guys coming up. We got a few of those guys coming up. So
yeah, we got to talk about the guy coming up here, who we talked about a little during the undrafted rookie free agent talk here, and that's Alex Johnson, who led the Pac-12 interceptions last year at a UCLA. 23 years old, 6'1", 190 pounds. Last year, 13 games, 29 tackles, 5 interceptions. Again, led the Pac-12, 5 interceptions, 3 passes deflected, and 1 fumble recovery, which was recovered for a touchdown. And if I remember right, we talked about that was from Caleb Williams, I want to say, too, that he...
pretty sure.
Isn't it funny that you and I talked about Caleb Williams maybe not being so good, and he's already getting benched from what I hear in the Bears practice? Just saying, maybe we were right. Maybe we were right. Anyway, the key questions we got here on Alex Johnson. First one, he had 5 interceptions last year. Obviously, we talked about that already twice in the segment here. That's an impressive number. He had not a single interception the prior 3 seasons. So it's not like he had 3, 2, 4. No, he had none for 3 years in a row. And then all of a sudden had 5. So to me, there's 2 scenarios that are possible. And we'll have to see him play this year to find out if he does even play this year, to find out what's going to happen. Either he figured something out and something just kind of clicked.
Or he's had a good year.
Or he lucked. He lucked out. Sometimes luck happens. Not just bad things happen in life. Sometimes good things. Luck's not always bad. At least that's what I hear. But yeah, I mean, one of those 2 happened, and we have to see him play to figure that out. I know we already talked about a couple of good notes we heard about him during the OTAs. Again, though, I take OTAs with a grain of salt, so I don't know how much to believe and how much is legit here.
You take OTAs with too much salt.
Yeah. So we'll see. But we also have a lot of depth at this position here. We already talked about, you got Banks, Flott, Phillips, McLeod, A-Rob, Darnay Holmes, Trey Hawkins III. Like, is there really a chance for him on this roster? To me, I got to wonder, is he just doomed for the practice squad? And that's not a bad thing necessarily for a guy that is an undrafted rookie free agent. No,
100%. And that's probably where he's going to be at.
Yeah. So I'm not too worried about it there personally, as far as do we worry about trying to slip him onto the practice squad? I don't think he's that good necessarily that people are going to try to steal him from us. I think we can put him on that practice squad. But he's a guy that if we lose, we lose. I don't think you can sit there and say he's better than the guys we just listed so far.
No.
So, but he's got some potential, and he's got some abilities to get some turnovers potentially as well, which is always a key thing. So I like him as a practice squad guy. I like him as backup in case of injuries to be on the roster, but that's the extent of where I like him. So,
all right.
Now we have the next guy here has a very long name. And that's David Long Jr.
So long, so big.
So 26 years old. He is officially the oldest corner we have on the roster at 26 years old, guys. That's kind of a little crazy. A little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Like any more crazy, we'd be putting straight jackets and be eating cornflakes to stop them doing things.
I mean, just look at our division rivals when you talk about the Eagles. Look how their starters are.
Their starters are like ancient. They're like 35 and 37. No.
Yeah.
I think about 32 and 34. I think their starting corners are.
About that, yeah.
We'll see if they actually start this year. Oops,
yeah.
Did I say that out loud?
Well, their PFF grade is terrible at the end of the year.
Pretty much everything was. That's why they got killed the last half of the year. Anyway, David was originally a 3rd-round pick from the Rams, drafted out of Michigan back in 2019. In 23, he played with the Raiders, the Packers, and the Panthers. So 3 teams. 14 games overall, 2 starts, 19 tackles, 1 pass deflected, a 65.7 PFF grade. Not, you look at it and go, okay, well, that's weird you were on 3 teams. But I feel like he's a legit NFL player. He's just a borderline legit NFL player. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I got him at there. He's not a guy that you sit there and go, let me see if we can develop this guy. He's 26 years old. He's already been developed. He is what he is. Guys don't all of a sudden at 26 become amazing, players. Can it happen? Sure, anything can happen. That's why the Publishers Clearinghouse is so popular. But it's like,
ooh,
maybe he's get the penny in the mail. Oh yes, but it's not likely. He probably is what he is. So if you need a guy at the back end of your roster to play corner that's got a little bit of experience, there you go, David Long Jr. And he's a guy that very well, I think, could sneak onto the roster. I'm not sure if you put him on the practice squad. I wonder if he's just too old. He's going to have a hard time making this roster, though, with all these young players we have, though. And I hate to say old at 26. Like, I know, John, I saw your comment there on that. But that being old, it's not old in the real world, but in the NFL, it's not even that it's old in the NFL at 26. But you go, okay, I've already seen this guy. I know what he can develop into. Why don't I give a 22-year-old the chance that we can develop instead? Like if it comes down between David Long Jr. and Alex Johnson, you're picking Alex Johnson all day long.
100%. Because just like you said, you got a young guy that you can do a little more coaching with. He hasn't had as much different coaching, if you want to say, to give him different ideas of what you want to do into this new set league. And if you want to be cliche, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, even though that's not true.
I thought it said Nick Lachey at first. I'm like, what, Nick Lachey?
Nick Lachey, you can teach your tricks all day long.
I know it says tuna, but it also says chicken of the sea. Yeah, she was pretty. So
chicken of the sea? Oh, yes.
Poor Jessica Simpson, 20 years later, still being mocked for that. Only by us. Nobody else remembers it probably, but
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if I had to pick, I would say I think he's not necessarily a bad pick for the practice squad because he's got the experience. I think if you put like him and Alex Johnson on there, cut Stanley Thomas Oliver III, and try to get the other guys on there. But if Aaron Robinson is actually healthy, you got one too many guys potentially, depending on how you build out this roster, and he might be on that way out. So his career extending may very well be based on the health of Aaron Robinson. And I guess that's good for him because Aaron Robinson's never healthy.
Yeah.
Not so good for Aaron Robinson, kind of good for him.
Touche.
Yeah, I know it's mean. We said it. Okay. It's all right. We're moving on. All right, let's get into should the Giants sign another cornerback in free agency here, because we talked about it. This is the youngest group probably in the entire NFL. So we're going to bring up a certain person in this picture here that, those of you who are big time Giant fans probably recognize the face. If you don't, look at that number 22 in the helmet, and you'll realize who it is probably real quick. And that's Adoree Jackson. Obviously played the last couple of years with us there, 28 years old. PFF grade was only 48.6 guys last year. He lost a step. I honestly think he lost a step. I think the big thing for me is that he's had some injuries. He gets injured every year. That's just what he is. We've seen that over time. He's proven that's what he is. I feel like he's just kind of lost some of what made him special. And I hate to, say it that way. Like he's had a decent career for a little while there. But I think we all knew that because of his constant injuries and the fact that he counts so much in his physicality. And I don't mean, him on the man coverage and stuff. I mean, the physical abilities he has, his speed, his agility, his quickness, and you lose that when you get injured every single goddamn year.
You're right. You're not wrong. And what was his injury last year that took him out? Like the year prior when he came back.
It was a couple of games he was only out this year, but he was out for what it was, 4 or 5 games with the lower body injury the prior year.
Yeah, hamstring. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's just, to me, he did not look like the same player at all.
Since he did
the prior offseason, we were all like, we should probably re-sign him. He's got 1 more year to go. We don't really have him to take his spot. And I look at based on how he played last year, I'm like, damn, what kind of guy we didn't re-sign him. Maybe that was actually one of those quietly good moves that Joe Shane never got credit for, because it was a pretty obvious move to most people we should have. He played like poop last year. So you can tell how excited I'd be about the prospects of bringing him back. The other options you got Stephon Gilmore, no relation to the Gilmore girls, 28 years old. I'm sorry, 33 years old.
Yeah,
74.
No relation to Happy Gilmore.
No, he's actually his second cousin twice removed on his mother's side.
74.4
PFF last year. I know, I saw that. Played with the Cowboys obviously last year. He has been getting a lot of interest and offers. From what I've heard, and this is obviously just rumors, from what I've heard, he's waiting for the right contract number. Let's be honest, he's a 33-year-old corner. He knows that time is nearing the end for him. He's 74.4 PFF grade. This was a guy who used to average over 80, no problem, every single year. He's definitely not what he once was. Because keep in mind, he was the second corner for them. He was not number 1. Bland was their number 1 corner last year. So I think he's probably going to look for more money than we want to give him. And again, he probably wants to play for a winner, not to be kind of a jerk about it. But considering how we played the last couple of years, minus the 1 year, is this where you want to end your career if you're him? Probably not. Patrick Peterson, even older, 34 years old. The record for the oldest corner in the. But he's somebody who probably at this point, to be honest, needs to play more of a backup role. Maybe even move to like a safety position. He's 60.5 PFF grade last year with the Steelers. But talking about an amazing career this man's had overall. One of the best to play at the corner position of the last 20 years, easily. That's easily with no hyperbole whatsoever. Obviously, we had Britton Golden, friend of the show, there on the podcast before, and he talked about when he played in Arizona that Patrick Peterson was just a guy you can tell the way he talked about him that he thought so highly of him. It's not even funny. So, definitely is somebody that I hope gets to continue his career, but I think it's probably not as a starting corner, maybe as a starting free safety if somebody's got a spot for him like that. But I don't think he fits the bill we're looking for. I'm going to give you 2 names of ex-Giants that I keep hearing people talk about as well. And I'm only going to put them up there. Let me put this. I'm not suggesting we get the next one a chance again. Be very clear on that. I am not suggesting this in any way, shape, or form.
You definitely are.
I am not. But I keep hearing people talk about it, even though it's bat poop crazy. What's that bat poop from the Ace Ventura 2?
Wano.
It's not Wano. It's not even Wano. It's like the low quality grade bat poop. Okay,
you get a lot for Wano, not for this guy.
Yeah, it's Eli Apple, who I don't know. I can't even believe he's still in the league. 28 years old now. Had a 55.3 PFF grade last year with the Dolphins. The scary thing is he might be the best option of the people we've talked about so far. But I want nothing to do with them just based on what he's talked about New York, the organization, and the fans. I want nothing to do with them whatsoever.
Yeah, you burn a lot of bridges.
Now, there's another former Giant people have talked about, and he's the guy I kind of would be interested in. On a 1-year deal, cheap deal, give him a shot at making the roster. And it's only because you'd have a good veteran on the team, a guy who, but all accounts was a very good teammate for the year we had him a couple of years ago. And that's Fabian Moreau, who's now 30 years old, had a 62.4 PFF grade there last season with the Broncos. But I think in the end, you got to look at this room and go, you know what? We got a ton of young corners. We talked about the oldest one's 26 years old, guys. Like, this is how young this group is. They need time to develop. We're also not going to go contend for a Super Bowl this season, probably. That's safe to say. Now, if I'm wrong on that, I'll be happy. Let's be honest. I'll be very happy if I'm wrong on this. I'll be very first one to say, yes, I was wrong. Yes. But we're probably not going to contend for a Super Bowl this season. So it doesn't make sense to sign an older corner that will simply block the development of one of these younger corners. Unless there's a string of injuries or they all show up in camp and look like poop. Like I said, you can't sit there and start a guy who's not ready to start because you just kill his confidence and you killed his whole career. I'm never going to advocate that. But to start a guy who's 30, 32 years old, 33 years old, 34 years old, when you got a 24-year-old on the bench that you've never had a shot at starting, that you're not sure what you got in him yet, that's a mistake.
I'm not going to say that's a black and white deal. I get what you're saying. I agree with you saying a lot, but sometimes you pick up a guy like Fabian Moreau, and it's, he's not the best player out there. He's not the youngest player out there. But he has been in the league a long time and has the experience that could share that with a one-year deal where we're not going to the Super Bowl and be like, hey, like, this is what we did here. This is what we did there. This is kind of experience that I've been through with this team and different teams.
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing to have. And is Fabian Moreau going to start solidly every time? Maybe, maybe not. Like, but to have that guy there to help develop younger talent, like, I get what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying, but like, I'm just saying, like, maybe don't be so like anti old guy.
Oh, we lost you, Rob.
Yeah.
We lost your picture there.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
So
let me ask you this. Would you say a good mentor for them would be a guy who played on 4 different teams, played 98 career games, 32 starts? Would that be like the resume you're looking for somebody to be a veteran
leader?
I'm not
saying that. I'm just trying to like.
Well, here's why I'm saying that, because you know who had that? As we lose Rob entirely. We lost Rob. There he is. We lost him. But you know who fits the bill of what I just described? Jerome Henderson. As we lost Rob again. He hates to be proven wrong. So, yeah, that's what we're looking at there. And like I said, I think that the big thing for me is you can't sit there and put a guy in and have him play all this time that could have gone to a younger player that, quite frankly, you need to see what you got in him. And Jerome Henderson is a former player himself, played all throughout the 90s. I think he provides some of that, hey, when I played this kind of I know these guys weren't even born when he was playing at this point. As crazy as that sounds, but especially with our group.
Yeah.
They probably weren't even around for Patrick Peterson's first years and playing in the league longer than it feels like it. But like I said, I don't think that's as important. I think we can get away with having guys like some of the former Giants come in at that point there and kind of teach them a little bit, like Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie come in, show a little bit, Jason Sehorn come in, maybe Felipe Sparks, some of the older guys that can come in and kind of give a little bit of teaching as well. I think we can get the veteran leadership out of that kind of role without having to take, snaps away from a young player. But again, if there's a string of injuries, then yeah, why not? If there's a whole bunch of these guys not looking good, I don't want to kill their confidence young either. I'd rather put a guy in for a year and develop these guys on the side. So it all depends on those two things for me. So
yeah, I agree. I was just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Well,
because you're like 100% like, oh my god, we shouldn't do this, but
you should not play devil's advocate. Listen to Keanu Reeves.
Whoa.
Yeah, I went there with an Al Pacino movie, Devil's Advocate. Was that 91, I want to say?
No, that was it's like late
95?
90s. That was like late 90s, like 98. That was DVD style time.
That was also the first movie that 97 it was. That was also the first movie I remember seeing Charlize Theron in.
Oh.
Yeah, Keanu's girlfriend in that movie. All right. Let's get to the last segment here where we ask the question. The New York Giants corners, are they better in 2024 or are they worse in 24 compared to 23? And there's Jerome Henderson. There he is. I put him up there in that picture for a reason, guys, because we have a ton of respect for what the guy does. There are certain coaches that we go, there's stuff behind the scenes. I don't know how good these guys really are. It's hard to judge a positional coach there. Jerome Henderson has been with this team for a while. He's been a guy that's developed corners, point blank, has a good track record of developing not just corners, DBs in general, because you got to give him credit for how Pinnock's developed. You got to give him credit for how what McKinney turned into before we lost him to the Packers there. I think he's what makes the difference, because you have an extremely young group. You basically had the same group last year, except you're taking Adoree Jackson out and potentially putting Aaron Robinson in if he's healthy.
Pretty much.
That's what I feel like what you got. And he added Drew Phillips in from the draft. I think on paper we're a stronger group. I really do. Because Adoree Jackson had a bad year last year. It didn't look great. He was just kind of thrown into the mix because there was no other option. I really think if there was the kind of team like we have this year and Adoree Jackson played as bad as he did last year, I think he'd be benched.
Agreed. Yeah,
so I think it's all how these young kids develop. I hate to call them kids, but I'm old enough I can say it. It's all on how they develop that determines, what kind of player, what kind of team, this is going to be and how this is going to be overall and develop as a whole there. So, but that's what I think personally. I think this group is better, and how much better is going to be determined by how these guys develop.
I think so. There's a lot of young talent, and there's a lot of hope to see what's going to happen. And listen, we could be eating our socks and our feet next season because we're wrong.
I have size 14 shoes. I'm not eating that.
Oh, you got a size 14 mouth too.
Wow.
Booyah!
Size 20. Got the shack of mouths over here. All righty, guys. Let's get on paying the bills here. We got some Giants news to go over there with you here. So let's pause for just a second here.
Enjoying the show? Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
All righty, let's get into the comments here real quick here as Rob had to step away for just a second, but he'll be right back. Ben Cornett, what's up, man? Says, good evening, fellas. What's Jason Sehorn doing these days? It's ironic you asked that because one of the things Rob and I have talked about doing is a Where Are They Now segment on old Giants players and kind of doing it by draft classes and that kind of stuff there. Thought that'd be kind of a fun thing to do as things slow down because we're going to get into that time period here pretty soon. Last year we did the Giants history of best players at different positions, and we still got to finish that a little bit too, but that's just about done. But last I heard, Jason Sehorn is I think on his third wife. I want to say he's obviously living the retired life there, but yeah, he's a man who's done well with the ladies. I'll say over the years, I'll put it that way. There, he's definitely done well with the ladies. He's living probably out in California. I want to say again, last I heard. Remember he was a Trojan back in the day and was born in, I want to say Sacramento, if I remember correctly. So yeah, he's a Cali guy. So, but yeah, like I said, when that comes up, we will go ahead and give more information based on that. It's just what I have kind of off the top of my head here. John Anderson, where's your hockey mask, Roberto? He had a Friday the 13th hoodie on, not a mask. If he had the hat on, that'd be kind of cool. John says, don't get eaten by a Burmese python, Drew. Why would I get eaten by a Burmese python? Why did this come up, John? He says he could eat you and sleep for a year. And then a little snake symbol there. He probably could. He asked a question. John says, any truth to the Giants getting wide receiver from Tennessee Titans, Treylon Burks? I've heard a little bit about that rumor today, and I think a little bit yesterday as well, to a certain degree as well. And I wasn't going to bring it up in the show, but you brought it up, so I'm going to bring it up here. So, Treylon Burks is now 24 years old. He was the guy that, when they gave up a first round pick at Philly there to go ahead and get AJ Brown, they went ahead and drafted Treylon Burks. They kind of tried to repeat what Minnesota did. What Minnesota got, Justin Jefferson in the trade, and the pick they got back from Stephon Diggs from Buffalo didn't quite work out as well. He had 444 yards his rookie year. He had just 221 last year. So not too good. Only one touchdown in his career so far still. He's a legit NFL player, but he's not been a legit starter. And he was drafted to be a starter. And there's kind of rumors that they're kind of getting tired of him and the underachieving and might want to get rid of him in there. Listen, I'll say this. I'll never say no to a conversation. It's the same as I always say in job negotiations. Like, somebody's going to offer you a job, shut up, listen to what they offer, and make your decision from there. I'll never say no to a conversation, but it'd have to be a steal for me to want to be looking at him as a potential player on the draft, or a potential guy for the Giants to be interested in. And it'd also have to be something money-wise that made sense, because keep in mind, he was a first-round pick, so he's got 2 more years at least of guaranteed money and a decent amount of money. I'd have to look at his exact cap number to see if it makes sense, long-term for us to go ahead and potentially get him. But, where would Treylon Burks even sit on our depth chart there? And that's part of the issue. Like, I can't even sit there and say Treylon Burks would make the team even. And I hate it that way. That's kind of crazy to say potentially, but we did the show on the wide receivers.
Oh, yeah.
He's not, would you say maybe he competes with Isaiah Hodgins for like one of the back end roster spots? Like, that's where he's probably at.
Probably.
His guaranteed salary this year is $2 million. This is not cap number. This is just his salary, $2 million, and then $2.6 million in 25. I don't think I'd make the trade, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, why would I want somebody else's bad, move? Like, I'm good. I have enough of my own moves that I hope not to be bad moves. I hope Wan'Dale Robinson develops. I'm hoping, that, Malik Neighbors is a true number one. Jalen Hyatt becomes the speed demon wide receiver that is a deep threat, and that could be a number 3 receiver for us, I'm hoping Darius Slayton stays here for a few more years and continues at his 700 yards a season kind of stretch.
That's 4 receivers right there.
I don't see the spot for him. I don't. So, I don't dispute he might need a change of scenery. I'm just not sure this is the scenery he needs, because he's not going to get a chance to develop.
Yeah.
He's going to be sitting behind people. So, all right. Let's see what else we got here. So I go back out of the comments here. Let's see here. John says, it's pretty sad when a player is more than half my age, younger than me, and he's old. Yeah, well, we're old, John. It happens.
John, we're all old here.
He says, borderline Madonna song, borderline. Feels like I'm going to lose my mind. You just keep on pushing my love over the borderline. Borderline. John says, Drew, you sound like Muttley the dog with that laugh. Well, I remember Muttley, Hanna-Barbera days and all. Jajin, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Jajin 300 says, love your show, fellas. Go G-Men. Appreciate it, man. Go G-Men.
Go G-Men.
John says, I remember Seahorn asked Angie Harmon to marry him on the Tonight Show. He did, and they broke up. And I'm pretty sure he's remarried. Again, I'd have to look it up. I wasn't planning on talking about that today, so I didn't have that much there. John explains the snake talk he had earlier. He says Burmese pythons are being hunted in Florida because there's so many of them that are eating the wildlife in Florida, somewhere by the Everglades, I think. That's all old news. I've been doing that forever. Literally, they've caught Burmese pythons eating alligators.
Yeah.
That's how crazy it's been.
Florida man catches alligator men.
They regularly do hunts at that point. And Rob, what is going on with your camera?
I have.
It is like going through like some kind of weird.
It's not just me, huh?
It's like some weird filter you have going on there.
It's a good question.
He says Traylon about 2 years younger than Hodgins. Traylon's also about $2 million over the next 2 years more expensive too. So it's not always about age. Sometimes it's about the money and the fit as well. So you know that Hodgins works well with Daniel Jones. You got to keep that in part of the mix. All right, let's get into the rest of the Giants news that we have here because, oh yes,
it's time for the news. Delete, 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 delete.
Oh yes. First up, we got a former Giant starter retires, and rather suddenly too. And thank God, by all accounts, everything seems to be doing well for him. But Billy Price, who of course was our center there back in 21, started 15 games for us, retired very abruptly. He posted on Instagram. This is an exact direct quote from him. He says, "In the blink of an eye, everything can be taken away. On April 24th, I had emergency pulmonary embolism surgery to remove a saddle clot that was entering both of my lungs. As a healthy 29-year-old, an unprovoked pulmonary embolism with no further medical explanation is terrifying. I'm truly thankful to be alive today. Unfortunately, I will be retiring from the NFL as the risk of an internal bleed while on blood thinners creates tremendous risk." And listen, your health comes before everything else, guys.
100%.
Everything else.
You have a family.
Yeah, like this is a guy that literally, like, think of it this way: like, a blood clot would have gone to his lungs. He would have not been able to like literally carry oxygen out of his lungs. That's what the lungs do. It's not just air goes in, air goes out. Air goes in, goes into the oxygen, goes into the blood, and then the rest goes out. So there's a blood clot in your lung. That means blood oxygen is not flowing throughout your body, which means you're dead. Like, literally, this man could have died. So he's going to be on blood thinners the rest of his life to make sure that doesn't happen again. And like he said, you get hit and bruise up. When you have blood thinners, you're going to internally bleed potentially. There's a risk of that. He's picking his family and his health over football. And I cannot, wish that on my worst enemy. But kudos to him for taking care of his family and his health first, because that's what matters. Remember, he was a first-round pick by the Bengals back in 2018. We traded B.J. Hill to get him in a trade that obviously the Bengals definitely won because B.J. Hill developed quite well for the Bengals since. After being with the Giants, he's since been on the Raiders, Cardinals, Saints, and the Cowboys. He ends his career with 69 games played, 45 games started overall, and he made a nice $12.8 million in his career. So, yeah, that's a nice little chunk of change there.
Yeah,
so,
he did well for himself.
Like I said, Billy Price, we wish you the best, man. Hopefully, good health.
Kudos to you, man.
Yeah, seriously, because that's scary. Pick. That's scary. So, yeah. All right, let's get into our next bit of Giants news here. We've talked about this before on the show, but it keeps getting brought up over and over and over again as more and more people seem to be validating this lately. That the Vikings apparently tried to trade up for Malik Neighbors. Not for J.J. McCarthy, who they ended up getting, but for Malik Neighbors. And their target was they thought they would be able to trade up with the Chargers. And if you had told me that on draft night, they went over, on draft night, and all of a sudden you hear that sound, I would have thought that they'd be trading up with the Chargers to make sure they get J.J. McCarthy because the Giants gave such a good, showing that they were supposedly interested in J.J. McCarthy at that point, And instead, they would have taken Malik Neighbors, who's who the Giants did want. Now, it also begs the question of, okay, you got Jordan Addison last year. You got JJ, Justin Jefferson. We talked about him earlier on the show. Probably number 1, number 2 receiver in the league, depending on how you rank him and Tyreek Hill. I think it's a 2-man race for that position. You look at what you got there. And Justin Jefferson is now rumored to be wanting a $30 million a year contract. I feel like they're telling you they moved on from Stephon Diggs when he wanted a lot of money. Justin Jefferson now wants a lot of money. They're trying to draft a replacement for him when they already have a very good player in Jordan Addison. I think Jordan Addison easily could develop into number 1 receiver in this league. We'll see how time tells with that. But yeah, Justin Jefferson. You heard rumors about him being available this offseason in trade. Maybe those rumors weren't so wrong. I'm just saying, maybe. I think you're going to see him in another uniform before.
That could be it too, and I almost feel like coming into this draft, like, yeah, hypothetically speaking, like, you know,
yeah,
Giants played a great game. Talk about JJ. How we want JJ. And we obviously want neighbors.
Yeah, we wanted nothing to do with JJ.
Honey dick.
Pretty obvious.
We honey dick the crap out of the Vikings. Is this them coming back at us? Like, oh, that's not the case. You know honey dick us. We didn't take this quarterback this level.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we want to be like the neighbors. Like,
You think this whole thing's smoke and, smoke screen?
I'm not saying it could be.
Possibly. I just think, to me, like I said, I look at history, and there's the old phrase: "Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it." Justin Jefferson better look out, because they did this to Stephon Diggs. As soon as he wanted money, he was gone, and they drafted his replacement in Justin Jefferson. Now Justin Jefferson wants money. They already got Jordan Addison. They tried to draft his replacement in Blake Neighbors now.
And you're not wrong for saying it either. I'm just saying.
Writing's on the wall. So
it could be both.
We'll have to see what happens. It'd be interesting to see what happens long term there. It'd be nice. We can watch chaos from afar for once, instead of having chaos on our team. That'd be nice.
Yay!
Yay! It's not us this time. Yay! All right, we got one more bit of news here to go over with you guys here, and that's because there's some new contract news here. Devin Singletary contract details unveiled. Ooh, unveiled. I like it's like a fancy term. So we already know 3 years, 3 years, $16.5 million. We also already knew that he could get up to $3 million in incentives as well. We didn't know what those incentives were. They came out today, though, courtesy of Dan Duggan of the Athletics. I want to make sure we give him the credit. He's the one who released it. Around $1 million of those incentives. So we got $625,000 of it will be based on performance. Singletary can earn $125,000 from reaching 1,100 combined rushing and receiving yards. Additional $250,000 for 1,200 yards. Additional $250,000 for 1,300 yards. So, not a bad chunk of change. The remaining $325 of the amount that we talked about, the $625, would come in from playing time. So Singletary can earn an additional $125 from playing 56 to 65% of the offensive snaps, and an additional $250K for playing 66 or more. So that's $1 million that comes out to per season on a 3-year deal of $3 million. So basically, I think it's safe to say he'll get probably get the additional for the yards if he's healthy, because he's done that most of his career. Right in that 1,300 stretch there. Yeah. No matter how much they play him. The sad thing is that means that they're incentivized to a certain degree, if he's not playing great, to play a young kid instead of playing him, to not pay him more money. And I don't know how much that goes into Dables.
It's also tomato. Like, obviously, the Mara family knows it is the New York market. Like,
yes,
we need to show
medium cokes.
Medium cokes. We need to show medium cokes. Hands down. When you go to MetLife,
yes,
medium cokes.
Medium cokes it is. Like, medium coke for all of the season ticket holders. Nobody else.
Yes.
You single ticket fan peasants, you can deal.
You could buy that $10 medium coke.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous. This is why everybody gets drunk in the parking lot beforehand. No one can afford to get drunk inside.
Mm.
It's true. It's the truth. But yeah, like I said, it's just interesting to see how it works. I think they gave him realistic contract incentives. I don't think they gave anything crazy. I mean, 66% or more. Yeah, you're a starting running back. You should be 65 to 70% of the snaps. You know, you're a guy that typically does, you know, about 1,000, just shy of 1,000 yards, 800, 900 yards, and does usually, you know, 300 to 400 receiving yards. Yeah, you should do about 1,300 yards.
100%.
So, like I said, it's achievable. I think the Giants have no problem giving it to him, because that means even in that scenario, you know, 3 years, $16.5 million. That works out to what, $5.5 million a year. So even if you have to give him $6.5 million a year, if he's a guy doing 1,300 yards for you, you're cool with that. That's not an issue. Yeah. You know what it is an issue? Paying him $13-14 million when he can't stay healthy. Ooh, who said that? Who said that? Who did that?
What?
Our entire running back room will probably be paid less this year than Saquon Barkley. At least based on his average annual salary, not the way they're doing, because they're doing void years and all that hoopla. But like I said, it was the right move. It was the right move. So, yeah. So if that calls in a night for
Flott is a Barkley guy, so I agree with Drew with that. Yeah. And I wanted Barkley back, but Drew is right.
Like I said, I respect the man. I respect what he did. I just don't think that's a position you pay that much money for when you can get a guy like this for $6.5 million.
Not in today's NFL.
No, it just doesn't make sense. So, all right, guys, that calls it an episode. We'll be back again for you guys Wednesday.
Ooh, what? Awestruck Wednesday.
Now, we'll have a little conversation about the safeties. We'll have a little more OTA talk as well, because OTAs come back up again tomorrow. So stay tuned. We'll be going ahead and going over that kind of stuff there with you guys. Remember, as always, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter/X, Twitch, and of course, Rob's favorite. Oh yes, my LinkedIn profile.
I gotta tuck you in.
And then with that, of course, we're available on all the social media platforms there. All the audio podcast platforms there. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, Amazon, all the fun ones there. So do me a favor, if you haven't already, guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit the share button there. Let people know about us, guys. We are literally closing in on what is going to end up being our biggest month ever with the Two Giant Goofballs podcast here. Much appreciated you guys there. I mean, thousands and thousands of you guys here have watched us schmucks here, so we're kind of shocked, appalled of you guys, but we're also proud of it. So we very much appreciate you guys there. You know, broken records for the YouTube, broken records here. I think we're end up having our second biggest month on the audio stuff as well. So, you know,
guys, it really does help us. If you hit the like and subscribe, it really does.
Like, this is the off season, guys, and you guys are liking it that much. So it's, you know, it humbles us. We appreciate it. And like I said, if you want to show us a thank you, obviously subscribe, tell a friend. And if you happen to go to a certain website above our heads, we won't complain either.
Yeah,
but either way, guys, like I said, just watching, giving a like, giving a share, man, seriously, we do appreciate it. I know
John,
it kind of sounds.
Thank you.
Yeah, seriously. I know it sounds a little cliche when podcasters thank you for the listeners. Like, I know it sounds cliche and like almost like you don't mean it, but honestly, guys,
we
really do mean it. We really do appreciate it. So, all right, we'll see you guys again there. But let's go real quick because John asked one question. We'll answer real quick. He said, "Do you think Saquon will torch us if he's healthy?" Yes.
Yes,
I also think he'll probably avoid Sexy Dexy like the plague.
Big time. Do you think Shaq would run to the outside for the first time in his life?
Probably run there.
He's going to try to run towards Burns. That's what's going to happen.
John said he had to work the corner to pay for his silver membership.
We appreciate that.
Yes.
Those fishnet stockings look great on you, by the way.
So John got some Johns. Oh man. All right, guys. We'll see you guys again Wednesday night there. Again, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as always. If you haven't already, feel free to set a little alarm clock if you want, even. Because to be honest, even I've heard like you hit the bell on YouTube and that kind of stuff. It's been kind of failing people a little bit lately. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday is when we always go ahead and record. Now, Rob tends to be about 5 minutes late always, so therefore, I'm calling you out.
What happened to you last week? What happened to you last week, Drew? What happened to the show?
I had some computer issues, but I'm not typically. Usually, I'm calling Rob. Let me show the times I call Rob at 8:59, going, "Where are you? Where are you?" Don't blame me. I'm calling you out. I'm calling you out.
That's it. We're going to go to the hell in the cage.
Well, that seems a little dramatic. Anyway,
call me out.
We'll see you guys again on Wednesday there. Appreciate you guys listening as always. And as always, Giant fans.
Go G-Man!
Go G-Man!
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.